Founder and director of Razom We Stand, found Svitlana Romanko kindly accepted an opportunity for a friendly conversation. Hello, Svitlana.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It is always an exquisite pleasure. First question, just help me to understand. I mean, sanctions, package number 16. What is it and why is it important? I mean, 16's before probably working more or less, now number 16. What is going to change?
Yes, there are some significant changes, which I would like to outline while speaking. But first is a very disappointing thing, which I have to tell first, because that's the absence of a full ban on Russian LNG, which is liquefied natural gas and overall gas pipeline as well. So we had high hopes that this will be implemented and embedded into the 16th sanction package, because it's high time. We had these packages. I mean, that 16th package, the action is significantly delayed. Yeah, it's so delayed. We couldn't see even 15th sanction package being properly implemented, because it just starts implementing since March this year, and we will be only able to see the effectiveness end of March the soonest. So it's just ridiculous, honestly. Just excuse my language, but that's ridiculous. Experts say, me included, that there are some measures that would actually strengthen the sanctions towards Russian oil and gas sector. For example, these are restrictions on Vostok oil and some LNG projects, which target its exploration and production. This expansion directly impacts major initiatives like the Vostok oil project, potentially hindering the progress by limiting access to essential resources. But it's not enough, of course. We have to look beyond. And I am afraid that we have a lot more work to do, including with diplomatic energy attachés. They sit in Brussels and they decide what sanctions will be imposed and what won't be imposed. So we have to do more work with Danish representation to the European Union, who takes the chairing the EU Council starting from June. Because as we've seen, Germany was powerful enough to block the full ban on Russian LNG in 16th sanction package. But of course, just my last point to your question, of course, sanctioning these 73 oil shadow fleet vessels is a positive step. And I made some assessment based on the calculations of our partners, Korea. And it's worth of 22 million of oil being cut from Russian exports, which is worth about 11 billion of euros, which is not bad. But China itself imports Russian oil for about 80 billions per year. So we see these numbers are not exactly that strong that we would like to see towards sanctioning Russian oil and gas.
Well, you mentioned ridiculous things there. Many ridiculous things happened recently, starting from Munich Security Conference, where I was present, to listening to J.D. Vance's speech of parental advisory and all that things happening with Donald Trump.
Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a separate point of a discussion for an hour, maybe. We can do that sometime. But you mentioned also shadow fleet, like Russian shadow fleet. My personal question is there really any actual way to counter that? Why don't we just expropriate these vessels? Is that possible?
I wish. As a lawyer, I can tell that actually some enforcement, whatever the members of European Union agree, it could be made possible, actually. So they have to think of that. But knowing the process of the European countries approving something on the EU level, it's completely like long, extended, and not efficient. So I doubt that this will happen. But what can happen, so enforcement might be put in place, as it just happened in the Nordic countries when they stopped these vessels, checked the insurances, and just try to understand if they are a shadow fleet or they are not a shadow fleet. But of course, the EU decision to blacklist the 73 vessels is designed to disrupt the network facilitating unauthorized exports. But if we speak about the shadow fleet, it's still not enough, because there are about 600 vessels that still await Yeah, still a way to be sanctions. And if we wait until many packages from now, it will be way too late, especially given the geopolitical turmoil which is happening currently at the Munich Security Conference, as you mentioned. It's not a time to cry, I would say, as some politicians do. Nothing to cry about. It's just a time for bold measures trying to secure European energy independency and also cut the financial flows to Russia for the oil shadow fleets, because being honest, it's the main source of Russian revenues. And of course, lowering the oil price cap would significantly help, because sanctioning vessels is not solving a root cause problem, which is actually high price for Russian oil and still a trade of Russian oil that was made possible.
Well, not a time to cry, absolutely. I'm on your side, I'm reading you, I couldn't agree more. A bit more talking about energy resources and fossil fuel, and to be honest, it's important to be honest, so if we are being honest to ourselves, we all, every single one of us has accepted money-praising social systems around us in every country. So we all accepted that, and as a general norm. Nothing personal, just business, that idiom, but we justified the dirty business deals at the cost of human values. It worked quite all right in usual times, but for some time, but in time of crisis, in times of war, we have bumped into that cadaver. It's an autopsy. These are our human values. They're almost dead internationally. Dead, and we have killed it on our own, foolishly creating a social phenomena. We have to deal with now on our own too, when money is valued more than human values. And this is why oil and gas from Russia will keep coming into European Union, no matter what. Money will breach any sanctions, creating as many loopholes as necessary. Would you agree to that?
No, I would strictly oppose that, because I am still an optimist. I'm the climate and energy optimist, and especially given that the clean energy, clean industry deal, it was just announced today within the EU, and they actually adopted 300 billion worth Repower EU strategy to cut dependency on Russian gas. So I'm kind of optimist that European Union is still a place where human rights are being respected. I can agree with you that moral responsibility of U.S. companies is going to really vanish as long as the harmful autocratic transformation lasts, unfortunately. But we still have Europe to preserve. We still have European values to preserve. And as Ukraine, we share those values. And last point on that we have to liberate ourselves of this hypocrisy of using fossil fuels and at the same time saying, okay, but you, European Union, you have to stop. Absolutely. As Ukraine, we also have to stop using fossil fuels, because we see how easily autocratic and dictatorship regimes can manipulate.
Exactly.
Yes. So we have to really deploy renewable energy sources. It's not that expensive that it was 10 years ago. It's much cheaper. And sun and wind is for free, just to buy some equipment, which we are hopeful will be produced in Ukraine as well, that will strengthen our value chains for the world markets. So let's hope that we will repeat the really magic happening in Pakistan, which is also quite a poor country, developing country, but the interesting case, really. And I wish Ukraine could follow this case, because the state has increased tariffs for electricity like 10%, 10 times off. Tenfold, and people who were not really able to pay to afford this electricity, they started to deploy much cheaper renewable energy, smart microgrids, trying to unite a few households. And now they are having energy with no access to grids. They are not paying oligarchs. They are not paying fossil fuel dictators. They're just happy, and we can be as happy as they are if we will repeat that deployment. And of course, if we could win the war and defeat Russian fossil fuels.
Now, Svitlana, I just love your optimism. And the reason that I asked my question, it was a green question. And my intention was not to push you away from that optimism. My intention was to borrow some of your optimism for myself, and you just did that perfectly. So my last question for tonight. So I know it's not actually
Yeah.
your niche, but I would like to know your experienced opinion. I'd love to get to know your opinion on this. Those over $300 billion or euros that I don't know that Russia holds in European banks. I even know the name of the banks. And Macron said it is against the law to just take it and give it to Ukraine. Maybe, but maybe time to change certain laws according to the objective reality. Maybe that is time came for finally, or not.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's time for radical action, including financial, and EU has to build their own strengths and to demonstrate these strengths to the other parties who are not waiting until the EU becomes a global leader. So they are instead evading of failing the EU down with all the policies, trade and economic, as we know. So it's highly competitive, but I think EU can potentially do that. But of course, realizing the difference between the US, who hold like much less billions of about 50 billions of frozen Russian assets,
Right.
and they are quite calm about what happens. They already became insane, honestly. So it does not matter if they go more mad. But
Perfect,
I guess
if you
for
ask me.
for the global community, but European Union has to wait pros and cons really carefully, but go for radical action and actually really enable this money for Ukraine aid and also rebuilding Ukraine.
Svitlana, thank you so very much. As I predicted, it's a great pleasure, an exquisite pleasure. You're a great speaker. Hope to talk to you very much soon. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, and
Thank
have a
you.
great
Thank you.
evening
Goodbye.
and calm
We talk.
evenings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.